This is a story that I've been following for a while now, and it's been SpaceX. But there's an interesting twist on the SpaceX story that's going on right now. This isn't exactly earth-shattering in terms of, it's not like this hasn't exactly happened before, but it's happening in a different way. So SpaceX, along with Space Force, are going to be teaming up on a launch very soon for a GPS satellite. This is from Tesmanian, the Tesmanian blog. I assume this is someone that's a huge Tesla, well, I don't know, Tesmanian. I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to say there. I assume Teslamania. So it says SpaceX has approval to land a Falcon 9 during U.S. Space Force National Security mission. And there we have a picture of the rocket, the type of rocket that's going to be used. It says SpaceX is a leader in aerospace innovation. The company's Falcon 9 rocket is the only orbital class rocket booster capable of deploying a payload into space and return to Earth. It re-enters the atmosphere and flawlessly performs controlled landings on autonomous drone ships at sea and landing pads. As of today, SpaceX has performed 86 Falcon flights. 47 rocket boosters performed a landing. SpaceX engineers started to reuse some of the recovered rockets to decrease the cost of spaceflight. The company aims to reuse a Falcon 9 10 times. The most reflights a particular Falcon 9 first stage booster has accomplished is 5. Returning orbital class rockets to reuse it is perhaps the most innovative accomplishment because it is the key to completely revolutionize spaceflight. Rockets should be as reusable, or could, I think he meant could, be as reusable as airplanes and cars. SpaceX aims to eventually develop a rocket that could be fully reusable. SpaceX typically recovers rockets after every mission. Next week, on June 30th, SpaceX will conduct a mission for the United States Space Force and attempt to recover the Falcon 9 booster for the first time after a military satellite deployment. Falcon 9 will lift off at around 3:55 p.m. from Launch Complex 40 at the Air Force Station in Cape Canaveral, Florida. It will deploy the military's third new generation global positioning GPS satellite, SVO3. It will be the company's second GPS launch for the military. The U.S. Chief of Space Operations, General J. Raymond, stated, SV03 will join the current 31 satellite operational constellation soon to continue and provide the gold standard in positioning, navigation, and timing services for billions of users worldwide. So the thing that's really different about this is SpaceX has been used before to help with the United States Space Force and Space Command in setting up GPS satellites in orbit. What's different this time is that they're actually going to be recovering the rocket. Normally they don't do that because due to the payload, because of how big these satellites are, typically those rockets don't have enough fuel to return in order to make the flight. So this is going to be interesting. This is going to be the first time that they're using one of these United States Space Force GPS satellites, which is a much larger payload, on one of these Falcon 9 rocket boosters and actually having the booster come down to Earth. So I thought this was kind of an interesting thing, Pete. I don't know if you'd heard about this or if you realized that SpaceX was doing flights for Space Force.
No, I didn't. I mean, it kind of makes sense that they would go hand in hand. I mean, that's the point of SpaceX, is to serve governmental space agencies, and Space Force would certainly fall in that. But this is the first time hearing of SpaceX servicing the Space Force. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of cool. But, you mentioned that's, SpaceX, obviously, you said it was meant to service sort of government agencies, but that's not exactly true. SpaceX, of course, is supposed to be advocating for commercial space flight. That's their big thing. Obviously, we talked last week about their Starlink project, and that is a project that is fully within the purview of SpaceX itself. That's their project. That's their baby. In fact, what's interesting is the Starlink network could end up being a competitor for the GPS system at some point. In other words, right now, Starlink is intended as basically a solution for rural internet, people that don't have access to the internet. But I could see a possibility in the future where SpaceX would actually be a competitor and might use their satellite system as an alternate GPS system. In fact, I know the Chinese have talked about doing something like that and are working on something like that, as have the Russians, because they don't want to be reliant on the current GPS system, which is maintained by the United States Space Force now, previously maintained by the United States Air Force.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense from their perspective. Although, to be honest, we have a lot more to worry about from Chinese infrastructure than the Chinese have to worry about from American infrastructure.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't disagree with you there. I definitely don't disagree with you there. But it is an interesting example of this sort of corporate government partnership that's developing, particularly on the space front. And I think it's definitely relevant in Liberty circles as far as people that are interested in that kind of thing, because it does go to the wider issue of, the involvement of large corporations in government operations, which of course has been the trend for many, many years now, decades, if not the last 100 years or so. Well, even beyond that, if you go all the way back to the creation of the railroad, of the transatlantic railroad, that was actually a corporate government partnership as well. So it goes all the way back to that. Some people like it, some people don't. So
yeah.
And
there were projects before that to navigate rivers.
Right, that makes sense too. Yeah, that's true.